So, Lavos Prime is out. Uh, Lavos himself is interesting because he does not have normal energy or efficiency. He operates on cooldowns. So, what I ended up doing is using Breach Surge over his 2 because his 2 is his subsume slot, or generally assumed to be that. As Vile Rush is good, but not really important. Transmutation Probe is too important. Ophidian Bite offers some defensive healing and stuff. Catalyze is going to be the main focus of this build, as I want to actually use Lavos as Lavos, not use Roar. It's important to have range, strength, and duration. Efficiency really isn't technically needed. Duration also affects his unique thing with status duration, which Lavos is kind of saved by his passive, which reads, Energy Orbs gives Lavos status immunity, which is good. But from my testing, I did not see if it prevented knockdowns. I don't think it does. It also adds the imbuement thing, so it adds additional stacks of whatever other element. So we'll add one stack of, let's say, toxin usually. And it'll add that. Usually what you want to do is toxin from Ophidian Bite into Catalyze or Transmutation Probe, either way. You're not really using Ophidian Bite except to heal if you need to, because we're going to kind of health tank with Arcane Blessing. And otherwise, you're just using it for the infusion, which does not spend the cooldown. Thank God. I think that would ruin Lavos himself. But then, so Catalyze normally does the 2600 heat damage. Well, what it will also do is then 2600 toxin damage as well with the toxin proc. So, really weird stuff. We're using 2 Archon mods, which again is kind of late game, kind of expensive, but it's going to actually add an additional heat proc like normal. Then toxin status effects will also apply a corrosive status effect. Means that this you toxin in is 2 heat procs, a toxin proc, and a corrosive proc. The only real important ones are the toxin and heat procs there, but breach surge and all that kind of stuff going on. You basically prime them with breach surge, imbue, and then hit catalyze, like I showed. And that is generally speaking going to kill everything. Not a lot can survive that. Arcane Impetus is here. I don't even have it full ranked. But that's why this does the fun stuff. Is that alone right there is already granting plus 15% ability strength and 7.5 ability efficiency, which is just gonna make the cooldown reduction go a little bit more towards 2 seconds. But it adds some strength to Catalyze, which is nice, making it do more damage. Catalyze is really weird, and it doesn't really explain it all that well here. When it says damage is doubled for each element afflicting an enemy, what that is quadratic scaling. So it's doubled if 1 element is present on the enemy. If 2 elements, it's actually quadrupled, and then so on and so forth. So you're getting insane quadratic scaling, which is why you want something that will prime the enemies for you autonomously and in a very wide range, which is why we have the Robo-Dog. With the dog companions, they may be saying, where's Nautilus or whatnot. he actually doesn't do it as well as the dogs, the robot dogs. Nautilus is really good on its own in terms of just like killing enemies, but dogs have unique synergy between two different mods, these first two mods here. First one is Repo Audit, emits a magnetic pulse that is a 30-meter AoE that, combined with Manifold Bond, companion preset mods apply status effects from companion weapons. Killing enemies with 3 or more unique status effects reduces ability cooldowns by 3 seconds. Those two combined means that this 30-meter AoE has a guaranteed proc of one proc of every single element on the companion weapon. We also have Reflex Denial, which just means that as the dog moves around, anything within 12 meters of it takes multiple magnetic procs because I have magnetic on the weapon, but it also means it's applying the manifold bond stuff. And then lastly, giant laser, just in case. You could technically, if you want, get rid of aerial. It's not like bad or unheard of. It would just mean that it's more likely to use these two. Which in a way could be better, but also this thing can practically nuke enemies on its own once, things get rolling. We also have Contagious Bond. Obviously, if the companion manages to kill an enemy, it's going to spread all of that within 9 meters. And then also adding additional random elements and stuff like that. Also just increasing damage as it attacks Exodus and whatnot. Synth Fiber is not really important. Link Vitality is probably the best. Here, as Lavos is already health tanking, you can increase the rank of this however you want. I'm credit poor because I ranked up, I want to say, 2 or 3 primed or Archon mods in the last couple days. So I've spent I was at 9 million credits, now way lower. Weapons to go with Lavos that also synergize well is going to be, of course, Harmony. Melee Afflictions is there, it's not really that important. It's pretty poor status chance, really, out the gate, which is why I wouldn't recommend Influence, is you have no guaranteed electrical proc, but also Toxin bypasses shields, meaning you have an easy way of insta-giving Corpus, any Corpus unit or anything with a shield. This is most of the build. It's not even done yet because I need to add in Lasting Sting because of Harmonic Resonance, which is the unique trait of Harmony. Basically, all it takes into account all the status damage that would be applied via heavy attack and then puts it all into one single damage instance. So the longer your status duration is, the better, because that's just more damage. Lasting Sting is obviously going there. Have the form, I just need to apply it, right? And finish leveling this. But even without that, it's already able to kill Steel Path, I only have them at 180 here in the Simulacrum, but it's able to murder them. Other guns I recommend. Corinth Prime is just my favorite gun. But shotguns in general are really good. Because we're also running Valence Formation. Anytime you imbue an element, you get 20 seconds of 200% bonus damage of that element. And then guaranteed status of that element. Is insane for Corinth, with going up to 19.6 multi-shot when Galvanized Hell is fully built, and just, yeah, it starts multiplying damage like crazy. And Galvanized Savvy, of course. Other guns, I guess, it still wouldn't be bad. If I had Burst and Incarnate, I'd do that. Brat and Incarnate, good. Anything with good high status, Convetrix, Exorgist works. Bellark's incredible with it. What else? Strun would work. Boltor would work. Of course, Torrid towards God tier. These three, the Archoplasmor, Kuvahek, or the Sobek would all benefit from being here. But especially for maybe all of these three, and including the Felarks and Exorgist, is you're going to want primary Crux instead of like Deadhead, as you're just going to multiply Galvanized Shot like crazy and just apply an insane amount of status, insane amount of damage, and then also you got that ammo efficiency with primary Crux. That's really, really good. Yeah, that's mostly it. Also, on the companion weapon, you're going to want to put as much status as possible on here, and as many different statuses as possible as well. The only thing, you could do status damage, but I'd argue that actually putting Lasting Sting in there might actually be better. In fact, it's something I'm thinking of even dropping Prime Fever Strike for Lasting Sting, just because it gives you a little bit more time in order to cast all your abilities and like reinfuse your 1 into your 4 and then cast. Speaking of that, I have a casting speed, regular, amber, and then a parkour velocity. These aren't necessary, but I think the casting speed one is necessary. It's just too good. You really want range on him as well. Adaptation plus vitality plus Ophidian Bite. Being able to heal yourself is fantastic. Arcane Blessing for Health Orb pickup is great. Especially because Transmutation Probe is also going to convert things into universal orbs, which is not only going to give you your status immunity, it's also going to count as a health orb, which is going to proc Arcane Blessing. Which, on top of that, means you're just going to stack up to quite a decent amount of health, especially if you have Blessing maxed. I don't. You can get a lot of health by the end of it. Archon shards that you want to put in here, you could go with green shards with the ability damage on enemies affected by, I think it's those affected by toxin, would be okay here. Purples with the electricity, but like I don't think he's worth spending anything to do with red shards here. With how important reds are, don't think it's worth it. I'd really like to see them shift around what is available on different shards, because I think the duration of that's on reds currently should be swapped to blues. Health regen from blue swap to reds, but they're like, oh, it's got to be defensive, offensive, and I think those are good enough things to swap. You know, health red, also duration, defense. You know, a lot of defensive skills in this game need high duration. So, what I think should be done, but other than that, this is Lavos Prime. He does some wild stuff. Gonna prime them, and yeah, and as you can see, the Free Surge does a good job of also kind of being a defensive skill. See, he just walks, that bubble will just apply status. Free Surge does a really good job of the defensive and offensive abilities, and kind of stuns them and blinds them so they aren't shooting at you as much. So it's kind of a thing you want to use on cooldown. It'll also help the dog kill things and spreads more status. Lastly, for the guide, you're probably wondering where to get Lavos. The first one is going to be the Lith L5. This is going to be from Hepit in the Void. This is the best place to get it. You essentially get only Lith relics from here. This is going to be one you have to Radiant every single time to give you a 10% chance. Next is the Neo X1 relic. This is easily gotten from Uko in the Void or on Uranus. On Uranus is if you only need the Neo relic. Good thing though is that it is the chassis and it's a common drop, so no need to Radiant. Next up is the Meso A8. This one you will probably have to Radiant in order to get the 20% chance. It's dropped from Uko in the Void. This is probably the only place I'd actually farm it. Lastly, we have the Axie F3. This comes from Apollo Alua. Apollo only drops Axie relics. Sadly, however, it is the uncommon or silver drop, meaning you'll have to Radiant these for a 20% chance. Lastly, thank you to Warframe Flow, Tactical Potato, and Brozyme for kind of inspiring this video and builds. I kind of cobbled together all three of theirs and their different takes on it. So thank you to them. I'll be putting links to their channels in the description. And lastly, as note, DE does publish all of their drop tables for everything, and that's where I got all the information for this video. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and hope I gave you some ideas for your future builds, whether they be Lavos or not.